It's a very broad one actually. I'm a personal stylist, an image consultant. So basically my clients come from all walks of life. But I guess if I'm talking about niche, it's probably men and women who are really aware of wanting to improve their appearance, their presence, probably working up the corporate ladder and wanting to be somewhere special, but needing to look the part as well. So I help both transform in a sense and become where they're going. So I guess that best describes my niche market. Wow, my journey, that's a really big one, Afros. I guess the first part of my journey starts with my parents, as with most of us. And they instilled in me some very, very special life skills, mainly survival. My mother was a Holocaust survivor. She survived the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. And my dad survived 4 years in a prisoner of war camp in Russia. So when they went back to Hungary, they'd lost everything and everybody and left Hungary illegally to escape to Israel, which was then Palestine, I guess. And that's where I was born. So it was a pretty riotous, tough beginning, but topped off with coming to Australia at the age of 6. So there started my first really big lessons in survival. I came to a country where I couldn't speak the language. I was bullied at school, and I remember very clearly having salami sandwiches on rye bread for lunch and not white sliced bread with Vegemite and cheese. So I was very ashamed of eating my lunch. So they were the sorts of little challenges that happened on the way. But I was a very determined kid, and a little Scottish girl came along, took my hand and helped me learn the language and learn to become a person in their own right. So it started at primary school, that journey of survival and wanting to make it. And so through primary school I knew that my parents were giving me the gift of an education in a great and very lucky country. So I decided that I was going to be the best at everything, despite the language barriers, and I did. I came ducks of every year in primary school, every year in secondary school, and carried off the matric, or in those days, the Year 12 prize in English. So that was, I guess, a real turning point for me. I'd won an incredible struggle, a personal struggle to become as good as the other kids that I went to school with, despite, the bullying and despite being the wog in those days, because we were all called wogs. So that was a huge turning point, and from there the journey became easier. I went to university and got a teaching degree, started off teaching primary and junior secondary school, and wrote a thesis of children learning through play. And through that, I actually really got excited because I recognised this authenticity that children have, this honesty, the truth out of the mouths of babes. And I thought, wow, this is amazing, and this is what I want to do as an adult. So that became my next goal in life, to be me, which I think takes a lot of courage for all of us as women to be ourselves and be accepted for being ourselves, and have the courage to be honest and open up about who we are and what we really believe in. So with that teaching, I taught for several years, and then somehow it wasn't enough anymore. So I went into sales and marketing and became a salesperson. So again, I wanted to excel at that. And running along as a thread from all those years was Mum and Dad started a ladies' sportswear shop called Nikki Sportswear. So from the age of about 12, I was selling in the shop and began to love clothes. And my mother was my greatest inspiration. She was always beautifully put together. She was a beautiful woman. She was beautifully dressed. And so working in the clothes shop started my love for fashion. And then I did some modelling, so again, that started my, or continued with that same sort of thread. So after being in sales and marketing for a lot of years and being in a little bit in the corporate world, I realised that there was a real gap. People had skill sets, they had experience, but they weren't presented well. So if you take a scenario where a few people sit applying for a job, for example, who's going to get the job? They've got the same skill sets, the same experience. They're all very hard workers, great work ethic, good record. Who's going to get it? It's the person that walks in and makes that impression. So when I realised that, I thought, well, I can help here. I can really do something here. So I started my own image consultancy, which I had for about 10 years, and I worked for some of the really big boys. The Commonwealth Bank, Ansett Airlines in those days, trained the flight attendants, helped design their uniforms, worked for Norwich Financial, the Hyatt Hotel Group, and the list goes on. And I realised that people were benefiting and transforming from what I was doing. So that's where it all really started, and that was the turning point. And I realised that I was totally passionate about helping people transform and present themselves in the way that they couldn't quite get, and I could hold their hand and help them along the way. So I guess that was how my journey progressed and got me to where I am today, doing what I love doing. My first client came along purely by accident. I was doing a corporate workshop at the Commonwealth Bank, and a lady came up to me and she said, "Nikki, I want to look better. I've learned a lot in your workshop, but I really need someone to hold my hand and give me some confidence. I hate shopping. I'm time poor. I go window shopping. I end up going home frustrated and upset and not knowing what to buy or what to put together. I'll buy something on sale, I'll take it home, it won't match anything else. Can you help me?" So that's how I tripped across my first client. And then it was easy after that because I offered that service and she was thrilled, and she still today is a client of mine. And the interesting part of it was that when she came along, she was overlooked for a promotion in her field. She was at a very senior level, but over the last 5 years, she had no promotional opportunities at all. And it's ironical that after she changed her presentation, it gave her more confidence, her whole body language changed. 6 months later, she was promoted to head up one of the top banks in South Australia. So that was a real success story and gave me the confidence also to deal with individual clients. In my personal life, because you've got to balance both, there was always a challenge with my long-term relationship. So within my marriage, because of my upbringing, I guess I learned or felt that I had to play a subordinate role. I felt that I had to be the little lady in the kitchen. I had to serve my man hand and foot. I had to do everything perfectly. I had to work full time. I brought up my child. I had to keep a household. I had to cook the meals. So my greatest challenge was to find time for myself and to justify giving that time to myself. So as a woman, everyone came first. So it was the job, the husband, the child, the household, the dog, you name it, and of course the parents. So the biggest challenge was to give myself permission to be myself. And that cost me a lot. It cost me my first marriage, and I felt very guilty and very selfish. So it was dealing with all of those demons, but eventually, with the help of some mentors, I overcame that guilt and realised that I had a right to be a total human being and to be a person in my own right, regardless of what sex I was. You know, I've always believed that you've got to be passionate about what you do, and I know that's a bit of a hackneyed thing, everyone throws it around, but passion is the essence of everything. And how I came across mine was I had a real need to help others, and I wondered how could I help them. So when my first client came along, it was opening the door to doing what I was really passionate about. It started off with helping women present themselves and have the confidence to strut their stuff, which meant a lot to me. And then it became helping other people, so helping a whole spectrum of men and women. And I've got to say that I wake up every morning, and have done so for the last 25 to 30 years, with this fire in my belly, this real excitement about the new day and who I was going to help that day, and the excitement about instrumental in being helping them. It was a feel-good thing. So passion is not about money. It's not about career success. It's not about recognition. It's about absolutely loving what you're doing. Just feeling so strong and clutching your fists and saying, I love what I do, and it gives me strength and it gives me a purpose. And you've got to have a purpose. You've got to have a reason to get up in the morning, and you've got to have that fire to start your day and be excited about it. My first mentors in my journey were obviously my parents, and I guess because they gave me total unconditional love and a belief in myself. They always encouraged me to believe in myself and that I was capable of doing whatever I really wanted to do. So that's where it all started. And then many years later, after a relationship breakup, I started working with a wonderful hypnotherapist, a guy called Lee Saxon, who was a great inspiration to me. And Lee taught me that your thoughts are what takes you to where you want to go. So what you think about is who you become and where you travel to. So he taught me that whatever I thought about, I could visualize and I could make happen. So he was an amazing mentor. He helped me get my life back on track. I helped him help other people give up smoking, lose weight, overcome their fears. It was a joint effort, a partnership, which was wonderful. And he was my first real mentor, and the guy that made me realise that we all need mentors. We can't journey alone. It's not no man is an island, as the song goes. So we need our mentors, and it's a give and take thing. So we don't just take from them. I'm sure that in many ways we give back. And then my third mentor was my Uncle Les, who was an amazing guy. He was only a little guy. He only had 4th grade primary school in Hungary, and then the war came along. So he never really had a tertiary education or even a secondary school education. So he was very much a self-made man. Came to Australia as an immigrant, started what they call a schmutter business, which is in the rag trade. Worked in that and worked with people like Ken Meyer in the lingerie business. So he taught me that you could really become streetwise and you could become whatever you wanted to be. So he had a vision and he really strove to that vision. His saying was, whatever it is, this is what it is. So he didn't look back. He knew he couldn't control the future. He dealt with what was and he made the most of every day. So growing up, he made me see that very, very clearly. And then he started a hotel chain, a Commodore chain. And he had partners like George Frew. You know, he just became an amazing human being, wrote poems in English, and people used to, politicians he rubbed shoulders with. I used to joke with him about his Hunglish because it was half Hungarian, half English, but they all understood. And he had this passion, this fire in the gut to become. And the other thing that he was a great philanthropist. So again, he taught me the importance of giving back. So whatever he earned, he gave quite a large percentage back to this wonderful country that gave him all the opportunities. So he was responsible for the Swanston Walk, the Sandridge Bridge, massive research into diabetes, cancer, a lot of grants to the universities and to the Alfred Hospital. So I'm just listing these things because A, I'm very proud of who he was, and B, he was a huge influence in my life. So he was not only a mentor, but he was an example, as were my parents, on giving back, on having a vision and overcoming the struggles of being new immigrants to this wonderful country of ours. I guess what's next for me in my journey is expanding my business and doing more of what I'm doing, and I'm finding little niches. I work with men a lot more than I used to, and they're a lot of fun, and I really feel that with their growing awareness, I can help them hugely, particularly in those who are looking to advance their businesses or the steps in their careers. The women, I guess I take for granted because we women help each other, and it's the men who are now coming up and needing more help. But I guess wanting desperately to give back and make a difference, I'm doing more and more work with women working through breast cancer and women coming through domestic violence or out of domestic violence situations. And this is what I'm very involved in and very passionate about, because I've been to both places. I've been a breast cancer survivor myself, and I've come out of a very violent marriage as well. And I really can say to these women, I honestly understand where you're coming from. I've walked in your shoes. So having that qualification, I can take your hand and I can help you. And all of a sudden you've got a connection, you've got a rapport with these women because you understand, because you know the courage it takes, A, to get through cancer, B, to come through a domestic violence situation. Most women are crippled by fear. They don't know how to get through. They lose their dignity, their self-confidence, their femininity through breast cancer. It's very demeaning. You lose your hair, you feel sick, you lose weight. You know, the body language is like this. You know, you've had a mastectomy or whatever. And I can help these women, and the body language becomes that. And there's a smile, and there's a wig, and there's fun in doing makeup. And yes, you feel sick, I know how you feel. But we can get through that simply by looking good and feeling better. Women coming out of domestic violence or having been raped or whatever, again, have lost their femininity, their self-confidence. They feel worthless. They have absolutely no self-esteem, and they've been totally downtrodden. So how do you help these women? You give them back the gift of looking good. Not sexy, not showing cleavage, but just feeling feminine again. And it's just amazing watching the change in these women, becoming themselves again. And again, you see this breath and this body language and the shoulders going back. So I guess I see myself working a lot more in that world as well. A lot of that work I do pro bono because I'm so passionate about giving back. It's something that I can do with the talent that I have to make these women feel better, to help give them courage to stand up and walk erect again and walk out of these devastating situations that they're in. So if I can help one woman out of 100, then I feel some measure of success. So yes, moving forward, I want to do more and more of that, as well as expanding my business. I do corporate workshops, I do keynotes, so all of that is kind of spreading the word that if you look good, your confidence grows and you become a better person. That's just my little way of contributing.